Hi, people. So, since Keir Starmer's Labour government has come to power this year, there's been increased debate around the issues of free speech in this country. The perception being that Labour is going to crack down on this more than previous governments, which is very vague perception, of course. But there are certainly things going on that raise questions, and I'm going to focus on one particular case study here, as reported in The Guardian, actually quoting a Daily Telegraph journalist who was involved in this alleged incident. Um, and it's a useful debate point. Let me just say for the record, I'll just get this out here right now. I am not complacent about freedom of speech in Britain. I do think that there are significant concerns out there. I also think it would be extreme hyperbole to conclude that, for example, makes the UK a police state. I've had a bit of back and forth with the journalist Melissa Chen, who is someone I did once quite respect. I always thought she was a reasonable person. That's how she came across. I wasn't super close to her, but I followed her, and she just made the sweeping statement that we're a police state, and she was citing cases like this. I think it's hyperbole to conclude that the UK is a police state. Major hyperbole. I mean, there's no rational comparison between living in the UK and the situation in the UK to a country like Eritrea or Iran. There just isn't. And as someone who's lived and worked in a totalitarian state, China, I do have a little bit of personal context to go with this, i.e., know what it's like by contrast. Keir Starmer's in Brazil at the moment at the G20 summit in Rio de Janeiro, and he met with Xi Jinping. Daily Telegraph's headline today was about Starmer being soft on China, not word for word, but that was what they were driving at. I may make another video about that because it's a huge issue, but we'll see, time permitted. Without further ado, I'm going to read out this case study. It particularly involves the controversy around non-crime hate incidents. And yeah, I think there's legitimate concerns. This report is by Caroline Davies and Jessica Elgott, and it is in today's Guardian. That is the 18th of November. Responding to tweets should not be the police's first priority, and forces should concentrate on what matters most to the communities the Prime Minister has suggested. His remarks came as Essex police investigated an allegation of inciting racial hatred by the Telegraph columnist Alison Pearson for allegedly posting a message on X labelling protesters as Jew haters. Keir Starmer said he would defend the right of the police to make operational decisions and said they would be held to account for them. His comments were made amid fierce debate on free speech after Pearson claimed she was left dumbstruck by a visit by police officers to her home on Remembrance Sunday over a long deleted social media post and accused of a non crime hate incident. A number of people who backed far right rioters over the summer were arrested and charged for allegedly posting tweets that were considered incitement. Speaking to reporters as he travelled to the G20 summit in Brazil, Starmer said, firstly, obviously, this is a matter for the police themselves, police force by police force, so they can make their decisions and will obviously be held to account for those decisions. There's a review going on of this particular aspect, but I think as a general principle, the police should concentrate on what matters most to their communities. Essex Police is liaising with the Crown Prosecution Service as part of a criminal investigation into a tweet posted and later deleted reportedly following protests after Hamas's 7th of October attack on Israel. Pearson said last week that officers had asked her to attend a voluntary interview over allegations of a non-crime hate incident. Well, what happens if she doesn't turn up? Are they going to criminalise her? How are they going to respond to that? She didn't go voluntarily. Um, Yeah, she tweeted at the weekend that the force had upgraded the accusation from non-crime hate incident offence under the Public Order Act, so his force has actually escalated this now. The Guardian reported that the tweet under investigation allegedly featured an image of two men of colour holding the flag of the Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf (PTI), a Pakistani political party founded by Imran Khan alongside officers from Greater Manchester Police. Pearson allegedly wrote a post targeting the Metropolitan Police, which read, "How dare they? Invited to pose for a photo with lovely, peaceful British Friends of Israel on Saturday. Police refused. Look at this lot smiling with the Jew haters. Pearson appeared to have confused the force concerned in the flag with that of Hamas, the Guardian reported. I'll continue in a second, but again, there is legitimate questions there. The police have to be strictly impartial regarding political persuasions and so on. So why is it okay to pose with a Pakistani political party? I mean, for me, the fact that Pearson has got this mixed up is a lesser issue than some of the deeper questions as to how the police are approaching this. And yes, it was a different force, but there is legitimate questions across the board. Essex Police claim Pearson was at no stage of its investigation informed that this was an alleged NCHI. So they're admitting that. Why wasn't she informed? Does not reach criminal threshold. Said in a statement for clarity, a complaint of possible criminal offence was made to the police, and this is why we called to arrange an interview. It is liaising with the CPS regarding an alleged offence. The CPS routinely provides police with further investigative advice, which is separate from a police request to make a charging decision. In an unusual step, the force released part of a transcript of the conversation it said its officers had with Pearson, taken from body worn video footage, in which the officer told Pearson it's gone down as an incident or offence of potentially inciting racial hatred online. That would be the offence. The force also complained to the media standard watchdog IPSO over false reporting. In a post on X on Saturday, Pearson wrote, 1. I am not a racist. 2. I didn't post a racist tweet. 3. My tweet did not incite violence against any protected characteristic. 4. My fairly innocuous tweet was deleted a year ago. 5. Senior lawyers say my tweet does not come near the threshold for criminal prosecution. 6. But Essex Police upgraded the accusation from non-crime hate incident to offence under the Public Order Act. Why? Tagging the ex-owner Elon Musk, she continued, this is all nonsense, deeply sinister, frightening nonsense and wholly disproportionate overreach if you ask me. Well, I certainly wouldn't tag Elon Musk in anything, but that's up to her. Despite Essex Police saying its investigation is into an alleged criminal offence, the incident has prompted debate around NCHIs and police responses to social media posts. Shadow Home Secretary Chris Philp told the BBC Sunday with Laura Kuenssberg the rules around NCHIs must be significantly recalibrated and police should concentrate on investigating crimes. The Conservative leader Kemi Badenoch previously told the Telegraph that hate crime laws must be reviewed to protect free speech. Basically, what is a non-crime hate incident? As the Guardian puts it, under the Police Crime Sentencing and Courts Act 2022, non-crime hate incidents are recorded by the police to collect information on hate incidents that could escalate into more serious harm or indicate heightened community tensions, but which do not constitute a criminal offence. They are defined as an incident involving an act perceived to be motivated by hostility or prejudice towards persons with a particular characteristic, which could be race, religion, disability, sexual orientation, and transgender identity. NCHIs fall below the threshold of a criminal offence but are kept on file. Personnel data of the person reported should only be included in the reports if the incident in question presents a real risk of significant harm to individuals or groups with a particular characteristic and or a real risk that future criminal offence may take place against them. So there's a lot of things around this. Now I'll come back to this particular case in a minute, but I will say this. It is very, very important that we know what we're talking about here in terms of what we should be concerned about. I feel that obvious cases of incitement should be taken seriously. I mean, a lot of people made a thing of that Tory politician's wife who was sentenced to, I believe it was 2 years in prison, quite a hefty sentence for her tweet. But what had she said? Was it something politically incorrect? Was it some racist joke? Was it, some unfunny meme? No, what she had actually called for was for hotels containing migrants to be burned down. Now, that is a clear incitement to violence. And she actually claimed that she would pretend to have mental illness or something as a cover up. This wasn't a case of she made a foolish mistake and she immediately deleted it. She did delete it some hours later, but she joked about that apparently with friends. So I think there has to be an understanding that if you're inciting violence, if you're explicitly calling for violence against people, particularly when there's already riots going on, when there's already a high temperature on the streets, then I've little sympathy for people doing that who are then held criminally responsible. But, and this is a big but, there has to be a differentiation between clear incitement and a post that may be inaccurate or a post that may be clearly just a joke or in bad taste or what have you. I mean, if someone posts is deliberately stoking up lies against an individual, for example, they falsely accuse someone of being a predator, that can be very inflammatory and dangerous. It can put someone's safety at risk, obviously. I would say that will cross into the threshold of incitement. But saying something like, why are the police not investigating these grooming gangs? This is just an example. That should be completely legitimate. Now, what Pearson had done based on this is she'd misunderstood a photograph. She'd assumed it was a Hamas flag and it wasn't. So she made a mistake. She should have been a bit more thorough with that. But I do not think that making a mistake in that sense can be deemed to be worthy of a police visit. I mean, the fact the police actually went to her home. This wasn't even an online thing, like, some sort of online warning or something, to actually go to her home. Now, Essex is quite a big county, 1.5 million people. I'm sure there are a lot of more serious crimes going on in the whole county of Essex. Assaults, rapes, etc. There's going to be serious crimes going on that really do require police resources. I do feel that a lot of forces use non-crime hate incidents as an easy option. You get good officers out there who do risk their safety to protect the public. You get what I would call back to basics police officers. That is police who just want to arrest crooks and do their job. But I frankly do believe that there are forces, superintendents, and yes, some individual officers who will see non-crime hate incidents as a cop out, a way to kill some time. It's easy because they know full well that it's extremely unlikely that they'll face any real danger in knocking on someone's house and harassing them on this. If something is not a crime, I think the police have no business harassing people over it. Now, I understand the logic that if someone is constantly, expressing their hatred of a particular group and that's building up, there may be useful data there in terms of counter extremism. So, for instance, if you have someone who's being radicalized by an Islamist group or a far right group, and they are constantly coming out with certain viewpoints that are extreme and hateful, there may be data there that could support monitoring that individual. But if the police are going to spend time harassing every single person that makes a mistake or says something that's politically incorrect, they're really, really going to find the public will not trust them. And it is a worrying abuse of resources. I think Essex Police has to come clean. Namely, why have they escalated this? What has Alison Pearson done that justifies the escalation? I think Essex Police are not coming across well here. Now, I always make the caveat there may be more to it. There may be more to it. But I just think we have seen a trajectory in this country where police are abusing their power over these non-crime hate incidents. I just think that the police have no business going to someone's house to investigate what they wrote online. It's just, unless that is a clear incitement to violence, unless they're frauding someone, unless they are, spreading false information, knowingly against an individual, for example, falsely accusing someone of being a predator, or, stolen ID, that sort of thing, serious fraud. Those sort of things would warrant a police visit. But a columnist mistaking a flag for another flag and talking about, why is this force with the Jew haters, it's a bit crude. I think she should have done a little bit more research, perhaps. But I really don't think it warrants a police visit. And bear in mind, there were Jew haters in a lot of those pro-Palestinian protests. Now, I've got more critical of Israel over the last year, but that's beside the point. What Pearson said was in the context of the fact that you did have Hamas sympathizers in those rallies. Now, um, I suppose it could be argued that it would be insulting for the two men in the picture to tie them in with Hamas supporters when she doesn't know if they are or not, but that's for them to take up. They can complain about it. They can respond to her or something. But I really don't think it should be a police matter. As for Starmer, I think he's given quite a weak response. I understand that he cannot interfere in operational matters of the police, but frankly, Labour needs to do a hell of a lot more to convince the public that they're not anti-free speech, because the perception of the Labour government is that they will try to use legislation to trample free speech. In fact, Yvette Cooper, for all her talk of being tough on crime, she's actually called on the police to increase the use of this. So that's a contradiction from what Starmer is saying, because Yvette Cooper believes this is productive in terms of building up data. So you have the Home Secretary saying one thing, the Prime Minister saying another. Um, Cooper and Starmer need to wake up. The public do not trust this. The public do not like this. The public see this as police overreach. So they need to get out of their bubble and understand what the public feels about this, because freedom of speech is extremely important now. Freedom of speech isn't just about saying nice things. There will be times that people say unpleasant things. There will be times that people make bad jokes or they say something that's politically incorrect. I do think that should be protected under free speech. Where do I draw a line? Like I've said clearly, when there is clear incitement of violence, I don't think that's legitimate free speech. I think that should be tackled. So I don't agree with those who say that the Tory councillor's wife was, oh, she done nothing wrong. That's naive. I mean, that is the other side of it. Someone who's clearly inciting, that isn't harmless. So I wouldn't go so far as to say people could say whatever the hell they want. No, I think that's wrong. Because then you will have a situation, for example, where it's perfectly okay to make false accusations against people, for example. So I'm not a free speech absolutist, but I do think that there's legitimate concerns about some of the things that are going on. And where I do think we should be tolerant of free speech thresholds is, frankly, people can be offensive. They can tell bad jokes. They're even entitled to make mistakes, which has to be seen as different from deliberately seeking to put out false information. If someone shares information which later turns out to be false, I would say people just need to be careful with that. But I don't think it should be a police matter. I mean, let's just use an example here. Let's say you get someone shares a post that says this particular group was responsible for this particular crime, and then that post later turns out to be false. Well, should that be a police matter? No, but I think the original post should be definitely taken down, because it is false information. But I think we're in a critical point here in 2024, because it's a balancing act of certainly holding criminal behaviour to account and understanding that, you don't shout fire in a crowded theatre. It does have real world consequences. I feel very angry when I hear people try to downplay what the rioters were doing this summer. And yes, a lot of them were absolutely motivated by racism. They were boozed up, they were attacking shops, they were burning cars, they were terrorizing people. Now, the idea that they had no motivation, that they just went out one day because they felt like it and they used Southport as an excuse. No, there was a lot of people recklessly inciting that online. So I have no sympathy with people who were clearly inciting that situation. I don't. But I am I am definitely concerned about the use of non-crime hate incidents. I would argue, are they needed at all? This thing about building up data, I just think that, the fact that police officers think this entitles them to go to someone's home, I find that very concerning, very concerning. Now, what if Alison Pearson said, tell me what crime I have committed? I mean, the fact that they never said to her there was a non-crime hate incident put her at a disadvantage. But for all she knew, she's wondering what crime she committed. If they told her immediately that we're we're checking up under suspicion of a non-crime hate incident, she could have turned around and said, "Okay, no crimes been committed. Please leave my house unless you produce a search warrant or an arrest warrant." Um, and my message to police out there, you know, the public are going to turn against you. This is only going to reiterate dissatisfaction with the police and disillusionment with the police. And it's going to make life harder for good officers who want to just do their job and arrest criminals. Um, the police complain a lot about public perception. And, sometimes I do sympathise with the police. I sympathise with them on the Chris Cabot incident, for example. But at the same time, I think the police, more often than not, do themselves no favours. Okay, I'll wrap this up. My getting a little bit sore throat here, but these are extremely important matters, and this Labour government has to seriously wake up and realise that most of the public do not like it, do not trust it. They see it as an abuse of power. Starmer may not be able to directly tell the police what to do, and the fact he's made the suggestion is better than nothing. But I think he needs to be a little bit more forceful and say, look, do your job, arrest criminals. Don't spend time harassing people at their own homes. He may not say these exact words, but it's very concerning. Although it has to be said, this didn't begin under the Labour government. It was going on under the Tories, so they can't be too, they can't lecture too hard on this. It was happening on their watch as well.